Revealed. 10 spine-chilling paranormal videos that expose sinister secrets and cursed hauntings. Lisa's heart raced as she sat alone in her darkened living room. The flickering of candles cast long, dancing shadows on the walls that seemed alive, creeping closer with every flicker. The silence in her home was suffocating, punctuated only by the soft whimper of her 2 young children sleeping upstairs. She had been working late shifts at the diner, and exhaustion clung to her like a wet blanket. But tonight felt different, thick with an unease that made her skin prickle. That S when the whisper started. Soft, indistinct, swirling around her like a forgotten lullaby. She shook her head, trying to dispel the images of horror that filled her mind. A figment of her exhaustion, she told herself. But the whispers grew louder. Help us, they were barely there, like a haunting echo, teasing her sanity. Lisa bolted upright, her breath quickening. Were they real? She glanced toward the hallway, her heart pounding violently against her ribcage. Shadows seemed to shift and sway as she squinted into the dark. It was just her imagination, wasn't it? In her mind, she could hear the neighbors whispering about the house when they thought she couldn't hear. The eerie stories of a vanished family floated to the surface, turning her stomach. As much as she wanted to dismiss the terrifying history of her home, she couldn't fully shut it out. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the days passed, dread sat like a stone in her gut. She stumbled upon a collection of paranormal videos left behind by the last tenants. The videos captured blurry figures slinking through the hallways, shadows flickering just out of focus. She felt an odd mixture of curiosity and horror as she watched them alone at night, the anxious atmosphere closing in. "Please stay with us," a distorted voice whispered through the static. Then came Mr. Evans, the neighbor with a concerned smile, who volunteered to help with her broken plumbing. His presence briefly soothed her frazzled nerves. But soon, his kindness morphed, slipping like ice into chilling currents of eeriness. The crooked picture frames, misplaced toys, small, unsettling signs that something was wrong. Every time she saw him, a cold shiver traced her spine, tightening with his lingering gaze. One night, he appeared with dangerous knowledge about the last family. A sick feeling pulled in her stomach. What more did he know? And then the laughter started, children's laughter ricocheting through the empty rooms, the realization that something dark lingered in the shadows. Terrified yet enthralled, Lisa ducked into every corner of her home searching for an escape, only to find the unnatural weight of despair closing in. This was more than just an unhappy home, it was a curse. With signs of increasing malevolence, she uncovered records that showed the terrible truth: families hadn't just vanished, they were consumed. The pervasive fear uncoiled in her gut as she grasped the reality. The shadows weren't just in the corners of her eye. They were alive and hungered for her family. Just when she thought she couldn't bear it any longer, she stumbled upon a hidden passage, trembling with dread and hope. Could this hold the answer she desperately needed? As she peered into the gloom, she heard a soft, mocking whisper ripple through the air, "You can't leave, not yet." Lisa's fingers trembled as she gripped the edge of the hidden passageway's entrance. The darkness surged, swallowing her whole as she stepped inside. Each breath felt heavy. The air was thick and musty, with a bitter tang that sent a shiver up her spine. A sensation of being watched crashed over her, prickling the back of her neck. "What do you want?" she whispered into the oppressive void. The silence returned, almost deafening, but then there it was again. Faint laughter, like a distant memory echoing off the damp walls. Her pulse raced in sync with the quickening whispers. They were closer now, more insistent. Join us, she stumbled backward, only to feel the cold, hard grip of the wall behind her. There was no turning back. She had to confront whatever lay ahead. With trepidation, she pulled out her phone, the light cutting through the pitch black. The beam flickered, revealing a narrow path lined with cracked, peeling wallpaper and remnants of old photographs. The images were distorted, faces obscured by shadow, but Lisa could swear they watched her with pleading, hollow eyes. Sweat trickled down her spine as she stepped deeper into the corridor. At the far end, light flickered from beneath a door. As she approached, the laughter grew louder. It was more than playful. It felt sinister. "Help us," the words twisted with a new urgency that gripped her heart. Lisa reached the door, its wood splintering and stained like something alive. A haunting thrum echoed behind it, her children's voices. Panic flooded her veins. "No!" she gasped, wrenching the door open. The moment she did, a wave of cold air surged forth, chilling her to the bone. What lay beyond warped her perception. Her living room was reflected eerily in the dim light, but it was wrong skewed. Her children were there, but their faces were pale and devoid of life. They stood frozen, an eerie stillness in the air, their eyes wide and unblinking. "Mommy, help us," they chorused, their voices layered and hollow. "Hurry!" A frantic shout echoed from behind, instantly snatching her attention. It was Mr. Evans. His face loomed close, eyes wide with urgent darkness. "They're not who you think they are," he warned, but it was drowned out as the shadows began to swirl violently around him, tendrils wrapping around his limbs. Lisa gasped. The walls vibrated with laughter now, a cacophony unleashing a gut-wrenching despair. The darkness began to creep closer, stretching toward her like fingers of smoke, pulling her into their depths. She had to act. She had to save her children. "Not my children!" she cried, lunging toward them. But as she reached out, a disembodied force struck her back, slamming her into the doorframe. The shadows roared with delight, and the laughing intensified, mingling with her frantic breaths. The darkness was alive, hungry. "Join us," they taunted once more. The floor felt like it tilted beneath her feet. "No, no!" she screamed, tears streaming down her face as she fought against the suffocating void. With every ounce of strength, she rose to her feet, the flicker of hope ignited. If this passage held the key, she needed to push forward. Just then, she heard the finality of Mr. Evans' voice. "You can't escape. The house chooses you." That was the last thing she heard before the shadows surged forward, pulling her into the depths, choking her screams. And then silence. In that darkness, a choice loomed. Would she succumb to the shadows, or would she fight back against the curse? But what she didn't know was that the walls had ears, and there were eyes hidden, watching, waiting for the moment to pounce. The silence grew unbearable. Lisa's heart thudded painfully against her ribs as she clawed her way through the thick void. She felt weightless, suspended between despair and the hope of escape. But beyond the darkness, something twisted awaited her, a heartbeat she could sense but not see. Suddenly, the shadows flickered, and she was ripped from the darkness into a scene too horrifying to comprehend. The laughter morphed into a cacophony of screams, echoing off the walls of her living room, which now pulsed with a sinister glow. Her children's faces, still pallid but now contorted in agony, stared through the shimmering veil, tears streaking their ghostly cheeks. "Mommy!" they cried, their voices unnaturally high and overlapping, like a chorus of lost souls. "Don't listen to them!" a new voice shouted, slicing through the madness. It was Mr. Evans, frantically tearing at the shadows that bound him. "You have to break the circle. It will trap you." Freezing, Lisa felt the weight of his words settle like lead in her stomach. A circle? What circle? Panicking, she searched the room. It felt surreal, a grotesque reproduction of the familiar. There, in the corners, she spotted fleeting shadows darting back and forth, a grotesque semblance of her children still echoing their pleas. "Mommy, you have to help us." "Shut up." The denial broke through her lips, a desperate attempt to shield herself from the storm of despair. Her breath quickened, pulse echoing in her ears. Determined, she turned away from the sight, focusing on the layers of darkness swirling around her. A shudder ran through her. They were alive, taunting, their forms elongated and sinewy, eyes glittering with malicious glee. "Why are you doing this?" she shouted at the shadows. "What do you want?" "I'm not afraid of you." The shadows hissed and whispered in response, and she felt their words crawl under her skin. "We are the forgotten, the chosen, the damned." Something flickered in her mind, a fleeting image of the house itself. It wasn't just a structure. It was a living, breathing nightmare entwined with a history she didn't know. The laughter escalated into a frenzy, filling the room with cold, disembodied joy. She felt sick. "Don't you see? You must decide." Mr. Evans' voice came back, strained and desperate. "The spirit of the house has a hold on your children. You must sever it." Her mind raced, memories flashing of moments spent with her kids, laughter filling hallways, warmth in every corner. The thought of losing that haunted her more than the darkness wrapping around her now. A shard of resolve pierced the haze. She approached the center of the room, stepping closer to the source of that oppressive energy. The air shimmered, swirling in a vortex of sound and despair. Something vital clicked in her head, a way to fight back. "No!" she screamed, raising her arms against the tide. "You won't take me. You will not take my children." The shadows recoiled as if struck, their grip loosening. For a moment, silence returned, a deceptive calm that echoed through the chaos. Lisa felt an unfamiliar warmth surge through her. "Mommy?" The children's cries cracked through the tension, their faces flickering with hope, even amidst their spectral forms. But just as she felt the shift, the shadows roared back, a cacophony of voices howling in anger. "You are ours. Join us." They fell upon her, a wave of despair that threatened to drag her under once more. With all her might, Lisa pressed forward into the light that tried to break through. She caught a glimpse of her children wavering behind the veil. Then a laughter erupted, louder than before, resonating within her mind. This time, it was not taunting, it was menacing, as shadows twisted, hinting at something far worse than she could comprehend. Join us now. In that moment, Lisa wondered if she had the strength to carve her own path, or if the shadows would finally consume her. The realization hit life and death merged in a battle of spirits raging around her. With one final scream, she lunged toward the flickering source of light. "I will not lose you." The walls trembled. The shadows writhed. Then she felt them, the eyes of the house, sinking into her with insatiable hunger. What would she find when the dust settled? Would she emerge victorious, or would she be bound to the darkness forever? And as she stepped into the unknown, the house whispered its secrets, coiling around her mind. The light enveloped Lisa, a blinding force pulling at her, yanking her into the heart of the storm. She gasped as she felt disoriented, dragged through a kaleidoscope of memories that twisted like a fever dream. Shapes shifted around her, familiar yet grotesque. Her children's faces came in and out of focus, their joy now tainted by a hollow despair. "Mommy, help us!" One of them cried again, but this time it was laced with something darker. "Stop!" she screamed, desperation clawing at her throat. "I'm coming!" But the shadows had a hold on her now, tangible and painful, tightening like a vice. Every anguished cry from her children felt like a knife thrust into her heart. Then, a scream pierced through Mr. Evans, stronger and more anguished than before. "Lisa, find the heart. It's in the walls." You have to get there, or they'll be lost forever. With a surge of adrenaline, she fought against the shadows, pushing through the weight of despair. The laughter warped into a shrill echo, bouncing off the walls, drowning her in a cacophony of horror. The laughter was coming from her own house, her sanctuary turned prison. "Where is it?" she gasped, her mind racing. Heart pounding, she stumbled forward, her hands brushing against the walls, feeling their cold, insidious pulse. A slickness coated the surface, something viscous that made her skin crawl. Why is this happening? Memories of the past months flooded her thoughts, those dark whispers that had seeped into her mind, those strange feelings that something wasn't right. The house had always felt alive, pulsating with hidden energy, but now it was clear it thrived on her fears, her pain. "Look beneath the floorboards," Mr. Evans' voice echoed, a lifeline she knew she needed to grasp. Instinctively, she dropped to her knees, pulling at the edges of the closest floorboard, splinters digging into her palms. The shadows hissed, swirling closer, sensing her panic. "Stop!" they screeched, and fissures of dread rippled through her. "You cannot." With a determined grunt, she wrenched the board free, a cloud of dust rising. The air turned stale, and she felt the very atmosphere thicken, as if the house itself was holding its breath. Beneath the wood lay a small, ornate box, oddly pristine amid the decay. Summoning every ounce of courage, Lisa grasped the box, fingers trembling. It was warm to the touch, almost alive, breathing like a celestial heartbeat. As she opened it, a brilliant light burst forth, illuminating the room, dispelling the encroaching darkness, and freezing the shadows in mid-motion. "What have you done?" they howled, their forms contorting as if in pain. The light wrapped around them, threatening to expose the ghosts hiding in their depths. Inside the box, nestled among intricate carvings, was a tiny, glowing orb, emanating an energy so fierce that it vibrated through her chest. This was the heart of the house, the source of all torment and shadows. "Release your hold," she bellowed, the power surging through her. But as the light intensified, the shadows shrieked louder, their anguished wails blending into a chaotic harmony of rage and despair. "You will pay for this, Lisa." They began to whisper her darkest fears, the moments she had tried to forget, the guilt of her failures as a mother. Then, as her resolve faltered under that emotional tide, a whisper slipped through the chaos, softer yet sharper than the rest. "You can't protect them. They're already mine." In that instant, Lisa realized the truth, how thin the line was between her children and the shadows. They were tethered to each other, intertwined in a macabre dance. The house thrived on that connection, feeding off her emotions, her love twisted into chains that bound them all. "Mommy!" The children's voices slipped into a mournful tune that sent tremors of horror racing through her veins. Their spectral faces shimmered, eyes wide, pleading. The battle was no longer just against darkness, but against her own memories, choices, and fears. Could she fight not just for her children's survival, but also against the shadows born from her own heart? As the light fought against the suffocating dark, Lisa clutched the orb tighter, heart racing. What would it take to free them all? And could the cost of that freedom be more than she ever imagined? The pulsating light from the orb illuminated every corner of the room, casting eerie shadows that twisted and writhed along the walls. Lisa's heart pounded, a frantic drumbeat that echoed the chaotic cries of her children. "What will you do, Lisa?" The shadows taunted, their voices a chorus of anguish, mocking her desperation. "Let them go," she shouted, feeling the weight of their cries pressing down on her. The shadows recoiled from the orb's light, momentarily weakened, but they quickly adapted, dark tendrils wrapping around her ankles, dragging her down. "Mommy, please!" came the desperate wails, and she could almost see their faces pressing against the edges of her mind, hazy and pleading. They flickered like dying flames, begging for her to reach them, to bring them back from whatever void was consuming them. "Listen to me!" she yelled, every ounce of her being focused on the glowing orb. "You thrive on my fear. I want to let you take them." With a sudden surge of determination, she thrust the orb at the shadows. The light burst forth, a shockwave pushing through the air, sending bursts of energy crackling around her like a live wire. The shadows writhed, their forms distorting, losing coherence as they battled the pure energy. But then, the whispers started again, softer, seductive. "Let it go. Lisa, you can't save them. They don't belong to you anymore." The shadows slithered closer, wrapping around her shoulders. They promised relief from guilt, an escape from the burden of motherhood. Just a single surrender, they coaxed. "Stop it!" she screamed, shaking her head violently, trying to clear the fog of despair that threatened to envelop her. Still, the memories surged, a flood of past mistakes, whispered regrets, moments where she had failed them. Each memory felt like an anchor, pulling her deeper into darkness. "No!" she cried out, forcing the light even brighter. She felt it pulse in her hands, a raw force against the suffocating presence. The darkness roared then, a beast awakened with fury, slashing at her resolve. "You think you can protect them? You think light can win against the darkness in your own heart?" The shadows lunged, coming at her from all sides, and for a moment, panic seized her. What if they're right? What if, deep down, they were simply remnants of the pain she carried? Maybe this was all she deserved. But in that moment of doubt, she felt a fleeting touch against her heart, the love of her children. It was as real as the orb in her hands. "I want to lose you," she screamed, channeling that love into the light. It soared, bright enough to slice through the shadows like a blade, illuminating the horror of the house around her. Suddenly, she heard jagged laughter, the sound hollow and mocking, swirling around her. "You cannot escape. The heart feeds on your love. Your fear, it knows your every weakness." In a blinding flash, the orb cracked open, splintering into countless shards of light that exploded outward like a fireworks display. Each shard encased a memory, a fragment of her past that the shadows clung to. Visions of laughter, joy, and sorrow mingled together, bursting free like trapped souls. "Children!" she cried, extending her hands, hoping against hope that those pieces could merge and bring her children back. As each memory flew past her, she felt a deep connection. Something within her shifted, deepened. But then, as the shards spun in chaos, a heavy silence fell. The shadows stilled, their form shifting in one final surge of rage. "You have made a grave mistake," they hissed, their voices low and dangerous. "We will return, and next time, you want to have a light to defend yourself." Lisa's heart dropped, fear coiling in her stomach. The walls around her trembled, cracks forming and spilling thick darkness that pulsed like a living thing. The air thickened, wrapping tightly around her, suffocating. What happens now? The thought echoed in her mind, sharp and disorienting as she struggled to regain her footing. A new tension knitted itself around her, and with it, a chilling realization gripped her. It was T/as. The remnants of darkness surged back, threatening. Relentless, she felt the energy within her wane. Shadows began to close in once more, but amid the choking darkness, she sensed the lingering energy of the shards. Could they still help her fight? Could she muster enough strength for one last stand? If not for her, then for her children, because she knew, in that moment, that they were counting on her. The house shuddered ominously, threatening to reclaim its grasp. The fractured essence of the orb beckoned like the lost souls she had yet to retrieve. What would be the cost of her battle? And would it be enough to truly save them? Lisa stood frozen, the pulsing darkness closing in, a living entity intent on swallowing her whole. The fragments of light scattered across the room, twinkling like distant stars, yet every flicker showered memories, moments she had shared with her children, painful wreckage of joy and guilt. The shadows wrapped tighter, seeking to drown her in despair, to silence the love that resisted their influence. "You think you can stand against us?" The voices whispered, smoother now, insinuating. "Just accept it. You're weak, a failure. Let go." "No!" she shouted, unwilling to yield. She hurled herself toward the nearest glimmer, reaching out with trembling hands. As her fingers brushed the shard, a flood of warmth surged through her. It was a memory of laughter, her children, playing in the sunlight, a moment untouched by fear. Behind her eyes, she saw their faces pure, innocent joy. For a heartbeat, she felt their presence, their love wrapping around her like a shield. The shadows hissed, an angry hiss that vibrated through the ground. "Stop playing with fire. Love is not enough." But it was, and she felt that truth surge within her. Each time she focused on a shard, memories ignited strength. Her children's faces grew clearer. The shadows shrank back, howling in frustration. With each loving thought, the light amplified, a beacon in the growing darkness. "I want to let you take them," she screamed again, and the words laced with fierce determination. She bit into the rafts of darkness that threatened to pull her down, fighting the despair that clung like talons. But the shadows were cunning, using her fear against her. They poured shapeless around her, shadows of her failures whispering darkly. "Remember the night you lost them? Remember when you weren't enough?" The chaos of her worst days flooded her mind, swirling like a storm. Panic clawed at her throat, and the orb began to dim, flickering dangerously. "No!" she cried out, forcing the memories of love through the haze. "I am their mother. I love them." The vibrant energy surged again, and she thrust her arm forward, channeling her love into the shards. Light filled the air, pouring forth in a radiant flood. The shadows screamed, their forms twisting and distorting, each scream worming its way into her mind, desperate to claim her. "You will never win, Lisa. You will regret this." Yet, an unexpected vision gripped her, her children beckoning, calling her with joyful laughter that echoed off the walls. "Mom, come play with us." They were alive inside her heart, and she embraced that truth, feeling the warmth radiate outwards, defying the encroaching dread. As she stood resolutely, the shards began to orbit around her, forming a protective barrier. The room reverberated, quakes splitting the ground, but she remained firm, her conviction undeniable. Her heart raced, but in that moment, she felt powerful, a true warrior against the dark. Then, from the depths of the shadows, a shape began forming, darker than the rest, a figure looming, more solid than the chaos around it. Cold dread raced through her veins. This was something different. "Did you think mere memories could save you?" it growled, voice low and filled with malice. "I am not just the shadows, I am your darkest fears made flesh." The air thickened, and the figure stepped closer, revealing red eyes that burned like coals in the night, a twisted mockery of everything she feared to become. "Fight if you wish, Lisa, but you will have to face me first." The very essence of terror permeated the air, and as Lisa faced this embodiment of dread, she felt the light flicker behind her. Would it be enough to fend off this new threat? And as the shadows began to ripple with manic laughter, Lisa braced herself, the final confrontation looming. What would she sacrifice to protect her kids from this darkness? The chilling truth remained. She may need to confront her deepest fears, or risk losing everything forever. The shadows writhed and twisted, their laughter echoing like a sinister melody, cold against her skin. Lisa's heart pounded in her chest, each beat drumming a frantic rhythm of fear. The figure towered before her, an altar of her despair, its eyes narrowing as if savoring her terror. She could taste the panic in the air, bitter like ashes. "What are you?" she gasped, straining to hold onto her light. It flickered, wavering as the figure loomed closer, the palpable darkness swallowing her cries. "I am the despair you buried deep," it hissed, each word dripping with menace. Every moment of weakness, every regret I've come to collect. The voice was serpentine, slithering into her ears, playing back echoes of every failure she had ever known. No! You're not real, she shouted defiantly, desperation igniting a flame inside her. But the figure only laughed, a cruel reminder of her own doubts parading in the very flesh of her worst fears. Oh, but I am as real as the pain you feel. Look at what you've lost. That love? It's a flicker, soon to be snuffed out completely. It gestured grandly toward the dimming shards, each fragment now battling against waves of darkness. In that moment, the ground beneath her shook violently. The protective barrier of light began to fracture, the shards breaking apart like glass. Panic soared in her throat. She couldn't let the darkness win. Not now. Not ever. Lisa thought back to her children. Their laughter, their innocent trust in her. You will not take them from me. The conviction sparked anew, and she surged forward, determined to push back against the growing tide of despair. With her heart pounding, she focused on the brightest shard, now flickering beneath a veil of black. I'm not weak, she cried out, extending her hand toward the light. Memories cascaded, bedtime stories, whispered secrets, and warm hugs. The luminescence surged as her love poured forth, chasing away the chilling doubt. But the figure pressed on, unfazed. Love is not enough to save you. Are you prepared to die for them? It taunted, each word aimed to pierce her resolve. What will you sacrifice, Lisa? Your happiness? Your sanity? Your very soul? The shadows laughed again, a cacophony of derision, as they swirled around her. Lisa's breath caught. Those words struck home, igniting the very fears she clawed to bury. She had always been afraid of losing herself, of becoming a bitter shell of a woman. Yet the thought of her children suffering under this dark influence ignited a fierce determination. No! She yelled, her voice breaking through the torment. I will fight. I won't give in to your lies. With a surge of energy, she plunged her hands into the brightest memory. A warmth spread out from her chest, enveloping her and rendering her doubts momentarily powerless. But as light surged and the shadows shrank, the figure stepped closer, unyielding. You think you can fight me? I was born from you. I am both your shield and your sword. I will not be extinguished that easily. The ground shook violently, more fierce now, threatening to split her apart. The shards began to spiral wildly, pulling at her thoughts. Lisa felt herself being torn between light and dark. Her memories flickered in and out as the figure's presence inhaled all warmth, casting her deeper into despair. What if your children never forgive you? What if you fail them again? It whispered, a serpent curling around her heart. But wait, what if you join me? She felt it then, a seductive whisper slithering into her mind, promising peace, a way out of the torment. But as her heart raced, Lisa caught a glimpse of her children's faces again, their bright eyes alive with laughter and love. No! I will not become you! She roared, hope igniting a flame in her chest. She straightened and focused on her love, channeling it toward the darkness. Yet, as the remnants of light surrounded her, a dread crept in like ice water through her veins. What sacrifices lay ahead? In the battle against her own fears, would the darkness demand a greater toll than she was willing to pay? The very essence of her fight stood at the precipice, the looming figure solid and unwavering. And with every pulse of despair she defeated, another layer of the darkness concealed something far worse. In that moment, it whispered again, and Lisa felt the shadows peak in a way she had never anticipated, tantalizing her with a horrifying question. What if you've already lost? What if the worst is yet to come? The tension spiraled, and Lisa realized this was only the beginning. With everything she loved at stake, could her light endure through the chaos threatening to envelop her? And as the shadows screamed in a deafening crescendo, she took a step forward, prepared to confront her darkest hour. Lisa's heart raced as she stood at the edge of darkness, the figure's laughter reverberating in a way that echoed through her marrow. It was as if the very essence of her being was being hollowed out, leaving only despair in its wake. The chilling air wrapped around her, constricting and tightening until every breath felt like a struggle against a vice. "Come now, Lisa," it whispered, the timbre smooth and mocking. "Let go of the pain. I can offer you what you truly desire. Shadows don't take, they offer. Join me, and all your suffering will be soothed." For a second, gratitude flickered, tempting. How easy it would be to release her burdens. The fragment of hope began to dim, and her memories quickly transformed into specters of guilt, looming tall and unforgiving. "No! My children," she gasped, shaking her head violently, refusing to surrender to the pull. The images of their sweet faces flashed before her eyes, reminders of the joy and warmth she fought for. "They need me. I want to abandon them." The ground shuddered again, cracks spider webbing outward, and she felt the world slipping beneath her feet. The figure advanced, a shadow unrelenting, ready to claim her. "Think of their future, Lisa. How can you save them if you can't even save yourself?" It taunted, curling its unnaturally long fingers toward her. "Stop fighting. Embrace the darkness within. It's your true nature." A cold dread clawed at her throat, and for a split second, doubt gnawed at her resolve. Would she fail them all over again? The very thought twisted like a knife in her gut. Memories, insurmountable grief, moments lost to time, the screams of despair flickered like dying stars in her mind. The weight of regret began to suffocate her light. "No, I cannot," she murmured, each word dragging against the despair weighed heavily on her heart. Suddenly, a pulse of warmth surged within her. It was small but fierce, a reminder of her children's love. Lisa's mind spun, darting between despair and hope, until she screamed a wordless defiance. "I am strong. I choose love." Waves of luminescence spilled from her being, brightening the air and pushing against the enveloping shadows. The figure recoiled, hissing in fury, its form undulating with rage. "You think that's enough to save you? You're deluded, my dear. It only gets worse from here." The shadows thickened, swirling and darkening until they formed frightening shapes, grotesque and twisted. They darted around her, taunting, whispering vile suggestions as they shrieked her name. "Join us, Lisa. Embrace the void and forget your burdens." Just when she thought she could stand firm, the whispers slithered deeper, burrowing beneath her skin, feeding her fears. Images of her children flashed again, but this time they were trapped, their faces warped in anguish. "Mommy! Help!" echoed in her mind, drowning her thoughts in terror. "No!" she screamed, clutching her head, desperately fighting off the encroaching shadows. The vision soon blurred with her tears, but it ignited something primal within her, a fire igniting against impossible odds. With a fierce scream, she expanded the light inside her, letting it explode outward. The halo of brilliance temporarily blinded her, consuming everything, even the darkness. For an instant, it felt like she could end this nightmare, obliterating the torment with every inch of her being. But as quickly as it surged, the shadows rushed back, furious, drenching her in dread. "Foolish girl," the figure cackled, now distorted by rage. "You will pay dearly for that light. I will show you the truth of your failures. And when I do, you will wish you had joined me." The ground heaved again, spilling forth a torrent of memories, flashing through her mind with dizzying speed, moments where she felt unworthy, lost opportunities, and promises broken. They struck her like daggers, each cutting deeper, and just when Lisa thought she could no longer endure, the telltale sound of a child's laughter pierced the sorrow, reverberating like thunder. It echoed louder, sweeter, filling the void where fear once dwelled. "Mommy!" Hope broke through the veil around her like a sunrise, striking the shadows momentarily silent. "What?" the figure hissed, sensing its hold waning. But as Lisa edged toward the light, she felt a cold shadow flicker over her shoulder. What if the sound was nothing more than an illusion? What if it led her to an even darker fate? The figure loomed ever closer, its gaze now seething with malevolence, and Lisa knew this battle wasn't just for her sanity. The shadows were coming for her heart. As the laughter faded, she braced herself for the confrontation ahead, unsure if she could withstand the true cost of victory. Would she uncover her children in the light, or would the shadows drag her into a chasm from which she could never return? The darkness poured around her, hungry and unrelenting. And as the ground trembled once more, she took a breath, ready to launch herself into the oncoming storm. What awaited her in the black depths? Would the truth render her free, or bind her to the darkness forever? Lisa plunged forward, the brightness clawing at her like a fractured dream. She felt the chill of the shadows still creeping, curling around her ankles, trying to tether her to despair. The laughter of her child was a golden thread in the abysmal dark, yet doubt stabbed at her. What if it was nothing but a cruel trick to ensnare her deeper into the void? Each step sent shudders through her body as she waded into the shadows. The laughter echoed again, sharper this time, a siren's call that urged her closer. Yet, the figure loomed ever larger and menacing, its shape bubbling and contorting like nightmares. A whisper skated across the wind. "Do you hear them, Lisa? You failed them. You've lost them already." "No!" she yelled, summoning every ounce of strength. The shadows recoiled slightly, but not much. She pressed on, chasing the sound that felt more like life than fear. The darkness around her thrashed an angry beast refusing to let her escape its grip. Another rush of laughter rang out, this time with more urgency. "Mommy!" It was her daughter, Sarah. The joy in that call reignited her determination. With each heartbeat, Lisa fused her love for her children into a shield, one that pulsed fiercely against the encroaching darkness. "Show me!" she screamed, her voice a gale against the silent rage. "Show me what you think I've lost." In response, the shadows erupted violently. They twisted and turned, revealing glimpses of horrific memories. Scenes from her own life, moments blackened by regret. Lisa shuddered, grappling with the images that clawed at her spirit. She saw herself, failing to protect her children from the world's cruelties, felt the weight of every tear that fell from their innocent faces. But it wasn't just failure that haunted her. Buried deep within the chaos, flashes of joy broke through. Bike rides in the park, bedtime stories, warm hugs. Those images flickered brightly, dispelling the darkness around her, if only momentarily. "Remember the light, Lisa," she urged herself. "Fight for them." The figure cackled in return, a sound that was both mocking and filled with fury. "You think you can conquer me? You think your little flickers of joy can extinguish me? Look deeper." The air turned thick, pulsating with an oppressive force. Lisa struggled to breathe, her muscles screaming as if weighed down by 1,000 regrets. And just when the darkness seemed to swallow her whole, Sarah's laughter echoed again, breaking through the fog. "Mommy! I need you!" Stumbling, Lisa pushed further, the light in her heart intensifying. With each step, she felt herself slide out of the memory-laden haze, yearning to embrace her daughter. She no longer sought answers from the figure, but instead craved the warmth of her children's love. Then, a sudden silence enveloped her. The shadows hesitated, and the laughter drifted away, only to be replaced by cries that chilled her heart. A cacophony of frightened voices erupted, pleading and panicking, swirling all around her. "Mommy! Help us!" The cries shifted and turned, becoming multi-layered, like a disrupted choir that sent shivers straight to her core. "Stop!" she yelled, her own voice lost amidst the chaos. "What do you want from me?" "Only what you cannot bear to give," the figure whispered. It reached for her again, its elongated fingers slicing through the air like knives. "Don't you see? You will regret ever taking your stand. Let me show you the endgame. In a moment that felt eternal, the shadows began to converge, closing in tight. Lisa sensed the encroaching dread, and with it, a terrible realization. Would she have to confront not just the darkness outside, but the darkness within? As she fought against the pressure pushing her down, she held tight to the love shimmering just out of reach, the brightness flickering on the edge of despair. With a final surge of will, she screamed, "I want to lose them again." But would it be enough to break the chains that threatened to bind her? The oppressive weight bore down even harder, stifling her breaths, and, in that terrifying moment, she felt a chilling choice loom ahead: either acknowledge her darkest fears or face an uncertain doom. And then, in the fleeting darkness, came the sound of something breaking, something more than mere shadows. What was it? A final chance, or the start of something worse? With a jarring snap, Lisa broke free, the weight of shadows shattering like glass. The light within her exploded, filling the room with a golden surge that pushed back against the darkness. It felt as though her very soul ignited, radiating warmth that melted the icy tendrils reaching for her. She gasped, every breath tasting of freedom, a clarity of purpose wrapped around her. "Mommy!" The voice of her children rang out, crystalline amidst the chaos. It pulsed against the shadows, rendering their mockery ineffective. She could almost see them, their outlines shining through the curtain of despair, vivid and alive. "We're here. Help us!" Their innocence remained intact, a beacon guiding her through the haze. With renewed determination, Lisa drew on her unyielding love. "I will not be afraid. I refuse to give in." The light surged with her declaration. It rippled outward, severing the shadows from her heart, forcing them to recoil. The laughter that had once echoed menacingly around her stuttered and fell silent, replaced by a howl of fury from the wretched figure. "This isn't over," it screeched, its voice rippling with malice. "The darkness will always wait for your weakness. You can't outrun me." "I won't run anymore," Lisa shouted back, the embers of rage dancing in her chest. "You're part of me, yes, but you can't control me. I will protect my children." As she spoke, the memories of love engulfed her, the laughter shared, the moments they danced together in the kitchen, the warmth of each hug. They spiraled around, creating an even brighter light, a shield meant to withstand the shadow's assault. "It's time to end this," she bellowed, gathering every ounce of her strength. "You will no longer feed on my fear. You will release my children." Light burst forth, a supernova against the dark. Lisa's heart roared, a fierce beating echo reverberating against the walls of her home. The figure writhed in agony, its form rippling and breaking apart under the intensity of her love. "You'll regret this, Lisa," it shrieked, as its red eyes flickered out. It dissolved into shadowy mist, retreating into the corners of the room, swirling uncertainly, ever threatening. In the aftermath, silence draped the room like a heavy blanket. Lisa stood panting, trembling as she fought to comprehend what had just transpired. But as she gazed into the void, the sound of small, soft whimpers broke through, drawing her attention. "Mommy?" It was Sarah's voice, broken yet so familiar. Lisa rushed forward, tears blurring her vision. She had to reach them. She had to bring them back. "Hold on, my loves," Lisa cried, plunging into the suffocating dark where the echoes struggled to reemerge. She felt the flicker of warmth escape from her heart, threading through the gloom. "I'm coming." "You're coming back to me." The shadows weakened before her glimmering path. With one final push, she reached out, feeling the distinct shapes of her children at the edge of her consciousness. Facing the darkness, she recalled their faces, the giggles, the warmth of their small hands clasped in hers. Lighting the path with every loving thought, she tore through the shadowy threads clinging to her. Suddenly, all defenses crumbled. The rich light burst forth, gathering momentum, illuminating the corners of the room in a bright brilliance. And there they were, her children stood bathed in the glow, their smiles breaking through the remnants of despair. "Mommy!" they shouted joyfully, racing toward her, their spectral forms solidifying into warmth and love as they connected. The horror and fear faded, each child enveloped in her arms. Tears cascaded down her cheeks, joy mixed with relief. "I was so scared," Sarah whispered, her tone soft and innocent. "Me too, kids. But we're together now," Lisa replied, her voice cracking with emotion. Suddenly, the house trembled as the last remnants of darkness vanished, shirking into shadows, retreating away from the light. With one swift motion, Lisa gathered her children, holding them tightly, feeling their heartbeats synchronize with her OWN.AS. The walls of the house settled, a soft breeze swept through, carrying away the darkness that had once haunted its corners. Quiet descended, peace filtering into every room. They were safe now, together. With one final glance around the room, Lisa released a shuddering breath. She knew the darkness might return, but they would face it together. After all, they had discovered a strength within one another that bound them more than fear ever could. Hand in hand, they stepped forward into their new beginning, a palpable hope surrounding them like an unbreakable shield. They were free. As they exited, light streamed through the windows, illuminating their path, promising brighter days ahead. No shadows could touch them now. And if you want to hear more stories that take you on wild rides through darkness and light, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button with all your might to feed the algorithm and keep these stories coming. Flood the comments section with your reactions, theories, and thoughts about this ending. I want to know what you're feeling. Don't wait even one more second. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to experience this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through your actions. Let's do this together.